The evening cityscape was drenched in neon and drizzle, reflections fracturing beneath the rain-soaked streets. Victor Langford, a towering man in his mid-40s with sharply cut features, stepped from his black sedan, his tailored coat flapping slightly in the wind. His gaze swept over the bustling crowd, indifferent yet watchful. A faint tremor of memory struck him as he passed a small cafe where laughter echoed. Even in wealth, emptiness clings like a shadow, he murmured, tightening his grip on the briefcase in his hand. Across the street a shivering man crouched, ragged and gray-eyed, clutching a cardboard sign. "Hungry, anything helps." Victor hesitated. No. Impulsively, he opened his briefcase, revealing a neatly wrapped sandwich and a thermos. Kneeling, he handed them over. The beggar's eyes widened in disbelief, revealing a weary hope that mirrored something Victor hadn't felt in years. As the man opened the sandwich wrapper, a folded photograph slipped out, catching Victor's gaze. The photo was of a woman with soft eyes and a warm smile. Claire, his late wife, lost to him too soon. A flash of guilt, longing and shock froze him mid-step, rain dripping off his coat. "It can't be," he whispered, heart thudding in sync with the patter of rain. Victor's hands trembled as he picked up the photograph from the beggar's hand, a storm of memories crashing through him. Claire's warm smile pierced through years of pain and solitude. "How is this possible?" he muttered, voice trembling. The beggar, sensing his turmoil, whispered, "Found this in the trash. Thought someone might want it." Victor's eyes burned with unshed tears. The city around them blurred as grief and nostalgia collided. His mind raced through the final days he spent with Claire, every argument, every unspoken word, now haunting him with unbearable clarity. He remembered her favorite cafe, her soft laughter, and the way she always reached for the smallest acts of kindness. This discarded photograph had traveled through unknown hands, finding him at the moment he needed a reminder of love, loss, and the fragility of human connection. He stood in the rain, clutching the image as if it were a lifeline, wondering how fate wove such a cruel yet poignant tapestry. Victor stepped back, letting the beggar retreat into the shadows, but the image of Claire burned in his mind. He pressed the photograph to his chest, feeling a surge of warmth mixed with agony. "I failed you," he whispered to the rain, each word heavy with regret. He felt the sting of years wasted in ambition, a life of luxury hollow without her laughter. A car horn blared nearby, bringing him back to the present, the world moving without pause. Yet in that moment, time slowed, and Victor realized the depth of his loneliness. He had wealth, power and influence, but a single lost love had rendered all of it meaningless. Holding the photograph close, he made a silent vow. To honor her memory, to seek redemption not through wealth, but through acts of kindness and humanity that could bridge the chasm of his own regrets. Victor entered his penthouse, the city lights spilling through floor-to-ceiling windows. The photograph now rested on the glass coffee table, illuminated by the soft glow of ambient lamps. He sank into a leather armchair, the weight of grief pressing on him like gravity. "I thought I had moved on," he admitted aloud, voice barely above a whisper. "But you've never left me, Claire." Every corner of the penthouse spoke of success and solitude, yet none of it held meaning without her. His assistant's message beeped insistently on his phone, reminding him of meetings, acquisitions, and press releases. Yet he ignored them, lost in the memory of her laughter, the touch of her hand, the warmth of shared mornings now forever gone. Rain tapped against the glass, a quiet echo of the night that had brought the photograph back into his life, as if fate itself demanded he confront what he had buried in his heart. Victor traced his fingers over the photograph, feeling the imprint of memory on its surface. The city's hum was distant, a backdrop to his private reckoning. "I can't change the past," he whispered, "but maybe I can still honor it." He rose slowly, glancing out at the rain-washed streets below. Every drop seemed to carry fragments of his regret, his love, and his lost chances. He resolved to find the beggar and discover how the photograph had ended up in his hands, a thread tying past to present, lost to hope. In the quiet of his penthouse, Victor felt the stirrings of purpose and vulnerability collide. The photograph was more than paper. It was a message, a reminder, a challenge. And as he held it close, the weight of memory and possibility shifted, guiding the first tentative step toward redemption and unexpected connection. Victor could not sleep that night, the photograph of Claire clutched in his hand like a fragile heartbeat. Penthouse, usually a haven of calm and control, felt alien and hollow, each shadow a reminder of loss. He replayed every memory of Claire. The gentle way she sipped her morning coffee, the quiet hum of her favorite songs filling their home, the spark in her eyes when she discovered small joys. His phone buzzed incessantly with reminders of business deals, luxury acquisitions, and public appearances. Yet none of it mattered. The photograph anchored him to a grief he had long avoided. By midnight, rain still streaked against the windows, a muted symphony of nature's rhythm. Victor resolved to find the man who had the photograph, convinced that it was more than coincidence. He scribbled notes, traced streets, and studied city maps, his mind driven by a mix of obsession and longing. Every shadow outside the penthouse seemed to whisper, "She is here somehow," pulling him into the depths of a city that had become both labyrinth and confession. Morning broke with an amber glow filtering through the glass towers of the city. Victor left his penthouse with the photograph carefully tucked in his jacket pocket, moving through streets slick from overnight rain. He observed the beggar's usual corners, searching for a familiar figure. Cafes and newsstands bustled with commuters, oblivious to his inner turmoil. A sudden jolt of recognition hit him. An alleyway shadow shifted, revealing a glimpse of the man from last night, hunched and wary. Victor approached cautiously, balancing caution and urgency. "Excuse me, the photograph," he began, voice steady but urgent. The beggar turned slowly, revealing deep lines etched from years of hardship, and a cautious curiosity in his eyes. He nodded subtly, motioning for Victor to follow. Victor's pulse quickened. This path promised answers, but also risk. The city's pulse seemed to synchronize with his own, every step forward, a mixture of hope, fear, and anticipation that he had not felt in years. Victor followed the beggar into a narrow alley, walls slick with rain and graffiti, shadows stretching unnaturally. The man stopped near a pile of crates, and gestured for Victor to kneel beside him. He revealed a small makeshift box containing old photographs, letters, and scraps of memories that seemed to belong to multiple lives. Among them, one photograph glowed with familiarity. It was Claire again, smiling as if captured mid-laughter. Victor's chest tightened, the world narrowing to the faint scent of wet paper and rain. "Where did you find this?" he asked, voice trembling. The beggar, eyes a mixture of regret and mystery, shrugged slightly, murmuring, "Sometimes the world keeps what it knows belongs to someone." Victor sifted through the box, a flood of nostalgia and pain, mixing with a strange sense of destiny. Every piece seemed connected, fragments of a life interrupted, now pointing him toward truths long buried beneath wealth and sorrow. Victor carefully lifted each photograph, tracing the faded edges with reverent fingers. He recognized moments of his life, places they had visited together, and faces once dear. One letter, slightly damp from rain, contained handwriting unmistakably Claire's, a message of hope and love preserved across time. Tears threatened to spill as memories he had tucked away so carefully returned in vivid detail. "I never knew," he whispered, overwhelmed. The beggar's eyes softened, witnessing the transformation from grief to revelation. It became clear that the photograph and letters were a deliberate act, a bridge between the living and the departed, and a reminder that love's legacy persisted even through loss. The city outside hummed softly, rain easing into a light drizzle, as if acknowledging the intimate confession unfolding in the hidden alley. Victor felt a pulse of purpose. This discovery was no accident. It was a summons to reconcile his grief, rediscover connection, and embrace the humanity he had long set aside. Victor rose, heart pounding, the weight of the photograph and letters heavy in his hands, yet lighter than the burdens he had carried alone. The beggar nodded, offering a faint smile that carried quiet understanding. Victor knew he could not undo the past, but the discovery offered a path forward, a chance to honor Claire, to act with purpose, and to connect with lives beyond his own insulated existence. "Thank you," he whispered, voice steady, yet laced with vulnerability. The alley seemed brighter now, softened by the morning drizzle and shafts of sunlight piercing gaps between buildings. Victor walked away, photograph and letters secured, each step a merging of grief, memory, and renewed hope. He was no longer the man defined solely by wealth. He was a man awakened, charged with remembrance and intent. Beyond the alley, the city thrummed with life, indifferent yet intimate, offering both challenge and redemption. For Victor, the journey had only begun, guided by love, coincidence, and a mysterious hand that refused to let him forget. Victor returned to his office, the city buzzing beyond the glass walls, yet silence consumed him internally. The photograph and letters lay on his mahogany desk, a bridge between memory and reality. His assistant knocked lightly, breaking the trance, yet he waved her off. Every detail of Claire's handwriting, the faint scent of rain on the paper, anchored him to a truth he had refused to face. He began tracing the origins of each photograph, discovering subtle locations and street markers that suggested a deliberate trail. The letters hinted at people Claire had trusted, others who might hold pieces of the puzzle. Obsession grew alongside anticipation, the lines between grief and purpose blurring. Victor's mind raced with scenarios, wondering if fate had orchestrated this encounter with the beggar, or if someone else had anticipated his need for closure. His pulse quickened as he realized the investigation would take him beyond city streets, into the lives Claire had touched, and into truths long buried beneath wealth, influence, and time. Victor's search led him to a small cafe where Claire had once met friends and artists. The aroma of coffee and baked goods mixed with nostalgia, filling him with a bittersweet ache. He scanned the crowd, searching for faces familiar to the photograph, analyzing interactions, gestures, and expressions. Memories flickered unbidden, Claire's laughter echoing in his mind. A young barista approached, eyes curious, and he hesitated before showing her the photograph. "Do you know this woman?" he asked cautiously. Her gaze softened, and she nodded, pointing toward a quiet table at the back. Victor moved closer, heart pounding, sensing that each step was part of a carefully woven path, one designed to reveal truths about Claire, her choices, and the people she had loved. The city, usually indifferent and impersonal, seemed suddenly intimate, every shadow and reflection hinting at connection, purpose, and mystery. At the table, a woman sat quietly, organizing papers and sketchbooks. Victor recognized her from the photographs, a friend Claire had trusted. She looked up, startled but composed. "You must be Victor," she said softly. His chest tightened. The conversation began cautiously, layers of grief and curiosity mingling. She revealed that Claire had left instructions for certain people to protect her memory, to guide those who cared toward understanding and closure. Every revelation deepened Victor's understanding of Claire's life, revealing acts of kindness, courage, and subtle heroism he had never known. As they spoke, rain began again outside, drumming against the cafe windows, a rhythmic reminder of time passing. Victor felt both exhilaration and exhaustion. Each answer unlocked new questions. The woman's eyes mirrored his own longing, an unspoken acknowledgement of shared human fragility and the unexpected power of love's legacy. Victor was led to a small art studio, where Claire had spent hours painting and mentoring. The smell of oils and varnish enveloped him, and unfinished canvases revealed glimpses of her vision and heart. He wandered slowly, absorbing colors, shapes, and memories trapped in brushstrokes. Each canvas seemed to whisper, reminding him of Claire's joy, her struggles, and the unrecorded moments that defined her essence. He realized her life had always been larger than his grief, filled with connections he had overlooked. A journal lay open on a small table. Victor read her words, raw and vulnerable, expressing fears, dreams, and hopes for those she loved. The realization hit. Claire's impact extended beyond wealth, titles, and luxury. It was human, subtle, and profound. Tears blurred his vision, but also cleared a path forward, teaching him that love and remembrance were acts, not just memories. Victor left the studio with a mixture of reverence and purpose, carrying photographs, letters, and Claire's journal carefully. The rain had stopped, leaving streets glistening under soft afternoon light. Each step back toward his car felt like reclaiming a part of himself, a bridge between loss and action. The beggar's image flashed in his mind, a reminder that simple acts of connection could unlock profound truths. Victor realized that his journey was not only about finding remnants of Claire, it was about living differently, honoring love, memory, and humanity. The city, bustling with indifferent energy, now held traces of guidance, as if each encounter had been orchestrated by fate or intention. He smiled faintly, a fragile but genuine hope forming. This was the threshold between grief and understanding, a moment that promised transformation beyond wealth, influence, or regret. Victor arrived at the outskirts of the city, where Claire had spent her final years in a modest riverside house. The scent of wet earth and damp wood mingled with nostalgia, each step along the gravel path echoing memories of the photograph he had found. He hesitated before knocking, feeling a mixture of fear, hope, and guilt. The door opened slowly, revealing an elderly woman, Claire's former neighbor, her face lined with wisdom and quiet sorrow. "You're Victor," she said gently. He nodded, showing her the photograph and journal. The woman's eyes softened, and she invited him inside, recounting the last days of Claire's life with detail and tenderness. Each word tugged at Victor's heart, layering grief with admiration. He realized Claire had faced her final trials with dignity, choosing connections and compassion over despair. The house, humble yet warm, felt like a sanctuary of truth, a place where memory and emotion converged. Inside, Victor discovered mementos of Claire's generosity, letters, small gifts, and journals documenting her life. The elderly woman guided him to a cabinet where Claire had hidden her personal effects, including photographs of people Victor had never met but who had been touched by her kindness. Tears formed in Victor's eyes as he read the inscriptions and messages, each revealing layers of compassion he had never known. The neighbor spoke of Claire's deliberate choices, her quiet interventions in people's lives, and the subtle ways she had ensured the welfare of those she loved. Victor's mind swirled with emotions, grief, admiration, guilt for missing these moments, and a growing determination to honor her legacy. The room seemed alive with Claire's spirit, each object a testament to a life defined not by wealth, but by humanity. Victor's search brought him to a local orphanage, where Claire had anonymously donated and mentored children. He entered a sunlit courtyard filled with laughter, tiny hands reaching for toys, and the scent of freshly baked bread. The head caretaker, recognizing Victor from the photograph, welcomed him cautiously. "She always hoped someone like you would see this," she said. Victor listened, humbled, as they recounted Claire's secret visits, the encouragement she gave to struggling children, and the sacrifices she made silently. His heart ached with regret for not witnessing this compassion firsthand, yet it also swelled with determination. He realized that the path she had laid for him was not merely about remembrance. It was an invitation to participate in the life-affirming acts she had begun. Grief and inspiration merged, forging a new understanding of love and responsibility. Victor followed a final lead to an abandoned warehouse on the city outskirts, where Claire had once assisted artists and community projects. Dust and sunlight streamed through broken windows, illuminating forgotten murals and half-finished sculptures. He moved carefully, heart pounding, as memories of Claire guiding young artists surfaced. A man emerged from the shadows, wary yet respectful. He revealed that Claire had left instructions for Victor to witness her impact firsthand, to see the people whose lives she had changed. The encounter was tense. The man tested Victor's sincerity, probing whether grief alone drove him, or if he sought understanding and action. Victor, unflinching, demonstrated humility, recounting his journey and what he had learned. The man nodded, granting access to the hidden projects and archives, a symbolic passing of Claire's torch. Victor stood amidst the abandoned artworks, absorbing the magnitude of Claire's influence. Every stroke, sculpture, and note was a testament to her compassion and foresight. He realized the beggar, the cafe, and the letters were all part of a chain of encounters Claire had orchestrated to guide him to this understanding. Tears streamed down his face as he vowed to continue her work, to honor her memory by acting with the same quiet courage and empathy she had shown. In that moment, the warehouse transformed from decay to sanctuary, and Victor felt a profound shift. Grief was no longer a burden but a bridge to action. The city outside roared as usual, indifferent and unyielding, yet within him a new mission had taken root, a mission defined by love, remembrance, and human connection. Victor returned to the city, carrying the weight of Claire's legacy and the secrets he had uncovered. The streets were bustling with indifferent pedestrians, the sky overcast mirroring his conflicted mind. He passed the cafe where he had first encountered the beggar, remembering the photo of Claire he had found in the leftover bag. His hands shook as he approached the same corner, where the beggar had been waiting. "I have to understand," Victor murmured, scanning the empty street. A faint figure appeared in the distance, cloaked in shadow, beckoning him forward. Each step felt heavier, as if the city itself resisted his pursuit. When he finally reached the figure, he realized it was not the beggar, but a man who had once wronged Claire, someone from her past seeking closure or revenge. Victor's heart pounded. The lessons he had learned were about to be tested against raw human confrontation. Victor confronted the man from Claire's past, a former associate who felt betrayed and abandoned. The man's eyes burned with resentment as he accused Claire of leaving him to ruin, unaware of her sacrifices. Victor's voice trembled, yet carried clarity. "I don't know the full story," he said, holding up the photograph, "but I know the choices she made were never for herself. They were for others, including you." The man hesitated, conflicted, and Victor felt the weight of words he had only recently learned to wield with truth. The city noise faded, leaving only the rhythm of their heartbeats and the wind against concrete. Victor realized this confrontation was less about Claire's past and more about his own capacity to embody the principles she had lived by. He stood firm, the moral and emotional weight pressing him forward. The man's anger softened, replaced with cautious curiosity. He studied Victor, sensing authenticity and grief intertwined with purpose. "She always believed people could change," he admitted reluctantly. Victor nodded, explaining how Claire's compassion had orchestrated these encounters to teach empathy and responsibility. Slowly, the man lowered his guard, revealing hidden acts of kindness Claire had inspired him to undertake, unknown even to Victor. For a moment, the two men stood in silent acknowledgement, the tension dissolving into mutual understanding. Victor felt an internal shift. Confrontation had not destroyed him. It had clarified the path forward. He understood that Claire's work was not just charity, it was a moral framework meant to challenge, provoke, and ultimately transform those who encountered it. Victor left the alley, carrying both Claire's photo and the lessons he had absorbed. He walked toward the city center, where lights flickered against puddles and neon reflections painted the wet streets. Each step was deliberate, a ritual of transformation. He remembered the beggar's grateful smile, the orphanage children, the artist warehouse, and the countless lives Claire had touched. His grief had transformed into resolve, and a newfound clarity emerged. Legacy was not measured in wealth, but in actions that ripple through lives, quietly yet profoundly. Victor understood that he had been chosen not only to remember Claire, but to continue her mission of compassion, bridging the gap between human indifference and meaningful connection. Victor paused at a high bridge overlooking the river, the city lights shimmering like scattered stars. He lifted Claire's photograph one last time, letting the cool wind brush against his face. "I understand now," he whispered, a mixture of sorrow, reverence, and determination in his voice. Below, the river flowed endlessly, a metaphor for life's continuity, reminding him that human connection could endure beyond death. The photograph seemed to glow in the twilight, a silent testament to love, resilience, and purpose. Victor knew he was ready to live differently, to act courageously, and to honor the unseen bonds Claire had left behind. The city roared, indifferent and vast, but within Victor, a quiet revolution had begun, one guided by empathy, action, and memory. Victor returned to the orphanage, carrying donations he had arranged in memory of Claire. The children ran toward him, laughter echoing through the courtyard, chasing a brief respite from their hardships. He knelt to meet their eyes, offering gifts, warm smiles, and encouragement. "Claire taught me that kindness can change even the smallest moments," he said softly. The caretaker, a woman in her late 40s, watched him with cautious hope, sensing that Victor's presence was more than charity, it was genuine connection. Victor lingered, listening to the children's stories and struggles, realizing that acts of empathy were not grand gestures, but small, consistent efforts. Each interaction reinforced the moral clarity he had achieved. Here, in these moments, the ripples of Claire's legacy became tangible, almost palpable. Later, Victor visited the streets where the beggar once lingered. The man now sat at a small market stall, selling handmade crafts, a subtle smile of dignity on his face. Victor offered to fund his project, but the man shook his head gently. "I want to walk this path myself," he said. Victor smiled, realizing the lessons Claire had imparted were not about rescuing others, but enabling self-empowerment. They shared a quiet moment, acknowledging the invisible bonds of humanity that neither wealth nor circumstance could sever. Victor's heart lifted, recognizing that true compassion was not charity alone, but fostering independence, courage, and self-respect. The city continued its indifferent hum, but small victories shimmered quietly in unexpected corners. Victor then arrived at the warehouse where struggling artists created their work. Inside, the room buzzed with creativity, paintbrushes and sculpting tools scattered, canvases leaning against walls. Victor offered mentorship and funding, sharing strategies to reach broader audiences while preserving artistic integrity. Claire believed in nurturing potential, he said. The artists, mostly in their 20s, nodded, cautiously inspired by his sincerity. Victor observed a young painter struggling with self-doubt, recalling how Claire had nurtured confidence in everyone she touched. He leaned over, offering guidance without imposing, letting his support empower rather than dominate. The space filled with quiet determination, illustrating the transformative effect of attention, respect, and consistent encouragement. Word of Victor's deeds began to spread quietly, inspiring subtle changes across the city. He walked through a residential neighborhood, observing small acts of kindness ripple from one person to another, neighbors helping each other, children sharing toys, strangers offering small gestures of care. Victor paused, reflecting on the invisible impact of Claire's philosophy and his own transformation. Each moment, while seemingly ordinary, carried weight, an echo of decisions made in quiet courage. He understood that legacy was not a monument or headline, but the cumulative effect of consistent, meaningful actions. The city no longer felt indifferent. It became a network of possibilities, each choice resonating outward. Victor ended the day atop a rooftop, overlooking the city skyline shimmering under the setting sun. He held Claire's photograph to his chest, feeling both loss and profound inspiration. The city, once cold and distant, now seemed full of human stories waiting for intervention, compassion, and understanding. He whispered to the wind, "This is how I honor her," committing to live deliberately, bridging wealth with purpose, grief with action. In that moment, Victor recognized the culmination of his journey thus far. He was not just a man changed by grief, but a conduit for hope and empathy. Claire's presence lingered, not as a shadow, but as a guiding light, illuminating the path forward. Victor received a letter from the orphanage, describing how children had started mentoring each other and creating art exhibitions to raise funds. He felt a surge of pride and bittersweet longing. Claire's influence, he realized, had become a living force, guiding those he had touched indirectly. He whispered, "She's still teaching, still shaping hearts." The letter was simple, but it carried proof that small actions, consistent kindness and empathy could create a network of hope. Victor held the envelope, sunlight streaming across the room, feeling both grief and deep fulfillment. It was the first time he truly understood the permanence of Claire's impact. At a charity gala, Victor watched the community he had helped flourish. Former beggars ran stalls with self-made crafts, Artists displayed works proudly, and children performed songs they had learned. Victor moved quietly among the crowd, observing the transformation. A woman approached him, eyes glistening, saying, "Your generosity taught us to believe in ourselves." Victor's chest tightened, recognizing that Claire's lessons had blossomed through him. Each interaction was a mirror of his own internal growth, compassion, humility, and courage interwoven in every smile and handshake. He realized that the legacy of one life could echo through countless others. Victor walked through the city's streets at night, illuminated by streetlights reflecting on wet pavements. He saw people helping each other spontaneously. A man returned a lost wallet. Children shared umbrellas. A street musician smiled at an elderly passerby. Victor realized that Claire's philosophy had seeped into the very fabric of the city. He smiled softly, whispering, "This is the world she envisioned." Even in grief, he had become a vessel for enduring change. The city, once a place of isolation, now hummed with quiet acts of humanity, proof that one life lived with intention could inspire many others. Returning home, Victor opened a box he had stored for years. Letters, photographs, and mementos from Claire. Each item stirred memories, both joyful and painful. He picked up a photograph of Claire smiling, her eyes full of life, and placed it on the mantel. "You're still with me," he said quietly. Tears rolled down his cheeks, not of sorrow, but of gratitude. Victor understood finally that grief was not a chain but a bridge. It connected him to Claire's enduring wisdom, inspiring him to keep acting, giving, and loving. He felt her presence in every choice, every kind gesture, and every heartbeat of the city she had touched through him. Victor stepped onto his balcony as dawn broke. The city bathed in soft golden light. He held a single white flower in his hand, placing it gently on the edge of the railing. "For you, Claire," he whispered. The world seemed still, yet vibrant, a tapestry of life and love that had grown from loss. Victor smiled, feeling both closure and infinite possibility. He turned back into his home, ready to continue the work Claire had inspired in him. The photograph of Claire remained on the mantel, a quiet reminder that legacies are not monuments. They live in actions, compassion, and the hearts of those we touch.